Let's give this a couple minutes. All right, I think we're good to go. All right, welcome. I'm Laura, I'm with Michaels, and I wanted to welcome you guys today and introduce you to Meredith with Beadalon. We've got Meredith, and we also have Yvette with us today. They're gonna be helping us learn some techniques with using the Loom. So I am super excited. I hope everyone's ready to learn and have some fun. Please open up the chat box on the side. We're going to go ahead and keep the sound on mute so that we can make sure we hear Meredith. And then Yvette and I are going to help facilitate getting your questions answered. So ask your questions in the chat box and we will make sure to get answers to everything that we can. We are going to record this class, and then starting on Monday, the class will be available at michaels.com/classes. It's the same place that you registered for this class to attend. And we have all of our classes on there of all of our previous sessions, including ones with Meredith that we've done previously throughout the month of July. So enjoy, and please let me welcome Meredith.
Hey beauty friends, I am Meredith Roddy from Beadalon, and I have Finn here with me also. He will probably make an appearance in a little while. He's feeling a little frisky this afternoon. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining me and Yvette and the Michaels team for this class. This is Jewelry Making 104, how to use the Beadalon Jewel Loom. So we are going to make this very cool adjustable bracelet using the Jewel Loom. So while everybody is coming in and getting prepared, I just want to let you know that this isn't a make-along class necessarily. I'm going to teach you how to set up the Jewel Loom. I'm going to teach you how to start adding beads in a looming pattern, and then we're going to jump way ahead and show the finishing technique. So if you're beading along with me, I'm so happy. I love having people bead along with me, but as I'm going through the class, there won't be enough time to go through the whole bracelet with me. So start with me, stay with me, but then once we get to that jump ahead point, you'll know that there's no time to kind of catch up and do the end with me. But as Laura mentioned in the beginning, all of these video classes live on. So you can go to the Michaels website where the community classroom classes are and watch as many times as you need to. But the great thing about the Jewel Loom and the great thing about looming in general and this particular technique is that it's a very manageable way of looming. So looming can be very complicated, but what I've done with the project today is tried to make it as super simple as possible. And the instructions were emailed to you, but also posted right in the very top of the chat. So if you scroll up to the top, you can see where Yvette posted those instructions, and you can download them and kind of look along as we're working today. So it looks like we've got a great crowd in here. Again, welcome and thank you so much. If you're just popping in, I am Meredith Roddy from Beadalon. I'm a design team member and also a product marketing specialist. So it is my job to take all of the amazing products that we have and that we have in Michaels and show you guys how to use them and how to have fun with them. So without further ado, let's get started and have some fun. So I think we are ready to go ahead and take the overhead camera now. We don't have to look at me so much anymore. We can look at my hands, and we can dive right into it. So to go over very quickly the things that we are going to use to make our project today. So we have the Jewel Loom, which we're going to get to in just a second. We are also using a material called B-Lon. Now you can see here it says Tex 210 nylon cord. It is a nylon cord that is actually used originally in the upholstery industry, but Tex 210, that is an indication of its thickness. And of course I just scooched and banged into my camera. Let's set that back straight. So B-Lon is a great thread for all different applications, and today we're actually going to use this to warp our Jewel Loom, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about why we're going to do that as we get along. The next material that we're going to use today is WildFire, and this is the 0.006 diameter You can see I've used a lot from this spool because I use WildFire a lot. This is a fantastic thread for all kinds of bead weaving, including looming. It is very durable. It is stretch. It does not stretch. I was going to say it's stretch resistant, but it does not stretch. It's waterproof. It's very easy to knot, and it doesn't fray very easily. So this is a great material to use for the looming project that we're doing today, but then also for other things as well. Also, we are using these really fun Czech glass beads from Michaels. This is just a mix of colors. You can use whatever colors either you have on hand or that inspire you at the moment, but I really like these mixes because you can see all of these different colors in here to choose from. And then the second to last thing you're going to need is a thread, a thread burner, or a lighter. The thread burner is a lot more precise than a burner is, and we'll see how to use that when we get to our finishing techniques. And then of course the last thing you're going to need is a really sharp pair of scissors. The sharpness matters most for the WildFire, but good sharp scissors are always good to have. And in the jewel loom box that you get when you purchase it at Michael's, there is a jewel loom, and then there is also a little packet and a needle and a threader that comes. And the jewel loom needle I really like because it is, I'm just pulling one out right here, it is a longer needle. So you can see that it gives you a lot of area here to pick up your beads. So let's talk about the jewel loom. So when you get your jewel loom, it is flat. And this is what it looks like. I'm going to try and bring my camera up just ever so slightly so that we can see everything in frame. That might be a little bit better. I just want everyone to see that whole jewel loom. On this side and on this side, there are ridges. I'm going to bring that up. Oh, so close, so clear. You can see all of these little ridges. This is the top where the words are. There's a hole here and a hole here. And then on the back, you can see that there are these little buttons, just little buttons of plastic that pop up like that, one on this side and one on that side. Now, we do not use the jewel loom when it is flat like this. What we are going to do is we are actually going to make it into a bow shape like this, okay? So that is the first step to setting everything up. And the way you do that is there is also this bar that comes in the kit. We're going to put one hook of that bar into one hole, and then what you need to do is get this hook into this hole. And the best way to do that is actually to rest it against your belly and gently pull this part up so that it hooks in. So this is a flexible piece of plastic, and you just gently pull it up. I'm bracing it against my workspace just like this to pull it up. And then you hook it in right there. And what this is doing is it's building in a way to have tension. So when we get to the next step, you want to have a nice tension on these warp threads. That's what these are called right here. These are warp threads. And that is what we are going to be using to do our looming project. So I'm actually going to take my bracelet off and leave it just right here off camera so everyone can kind of see what we're working towards. And I'm going to refer to this a couple of times, of course, during our class. So now here I have my jewel loom, and I have the bar or the rod in the middle, hooked in both of the holes. And just, you can see from the back how it looks like they just protrude out or stick out ever so slightly. All right, so now we're ready to start with our warp thread. So a little bit of vocabulary. The warp is what goes this way. Okay, so one word that we need to learn for this class is warp. And then the other word or vocabulary word or term that we're going to use is the weft. And that is the thread that goes horizontally or perpendicular to the warp thread. Okay, so warp and weft, important words for looming. So now what I'm doing is I am warping my loom. So I'm going to take some of the B-Lon nylon cord, and this is just the gray color. And you can see that I've used a little bit. I've done a bunch of projects with this. And I'm going to warp 6 threads. So what 6 threads will yield me is 5 spaces. Okay, and if you're following along in the instructions, the instructions will indicate that 6 threads, 5 spaces. So the way that we're going to do this is I'm going to turn this over. And I'm going to secure the end of my B-Lon to the button. Doesn't matter which button, just either button, choose a button and secure it. Okay, so I'm going to take my B-Lon and I'm just going to do this with an overhand knot. Okay, so right over left. We want to get technical, it's a surgeon's knot, so it's nice and secure. And then left over right, and I'm going to pull that nice and tight, and I'm going to pull up and make sure that it's nice and tight. Next step, did everyone hear my big sigh? I'm going to turn it over. And again, it helps if you brace it against your belly. It's just one of those things that makes the warping, I think, a little bit easier. But now what you're going to do is see all of these little ridges here? You're going to bring that B-Lon up and hook it in between 2 of those ridges. You can start out here. You can start in the center. You can start kind of a little bit to the side is usually where I end up doing that. So because I am using, well, let's get to that in just one second. So I'm going to pull this down now. And I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to put it right in between 2 of those ridges. Now, if you are a very particular and specific person, you certainly can count out the same amount of ridges at the top and the same amount of ridges at the bottom. Or like me, you can kind of eyeball it. If you're one off one way or the other, or even a couple off one way or the other, it does not matter, I promise. Okay, so now I'm putting some good tension on this. I'm not pulling so tight that my thread comes undone. I'm not pulling so tight that anything breaks, but I'm also not holding it really loose so that there's a lot of slack in here. I'm holding it tight enough to hold it in place. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn to the back again. Okay, so I'm going to turn to the back and I'm going to wrap my B-Lon around that button. Okay, and now I'm going to skip one of the ridges and place my B-Lon in the ridge, the next ridge over. Okay, and the reason why I'm doing that is because I'm using size 6 beads. If I were using delicas or if I were using size 11 beads, I would not skip any. I would just go right to that very next space. But because I'm using beads that are slightly larger, I'm skipping a space and I'm coming here. If I were using cube beads, I would probably need to skip another space. If I were using bugle beads, depending on how long those bugle beads were, I might need to skip more or less spaces. So since I'm using the size 6 beads, I'm skipping 1 space. I'm going to keep that nice tension on and I'm going to turn it over again. Okay, so now I'm going to come and I'm going to do that same skip on the other side. So I have 1 space that is free and 1 space that has my B-Lon thread on it. And now I'm going to turn it over, and I don't even really have to turn it over all the way. I'm just kind of going to the back and pulling that around, again, maintaining that tension. And now see, I skipped 3 spaces there. No big thing. I'm just going to come back, and that's 1 space. And There we go. Sometimes the B-Lon goes right in the space that you want, and sometimes you have to put it a little bit closer to your face, right? So now I'm going to come down again to the other side, skip one, put it in the space, come around to the back, pull it up, and you continue this motion for as many warp threads as you want. So I'm just going to do that really slow and really close so everyone can really see what's going on here. Okay, so now I have 1, 2, 3, 4, and this is 5. And since I want 6 beads across, I'm sorry, I want 5 beads across. So I'm going to use 6 warp threads. You always want to do 1 more warp thread than beads. Makes sense, right? So we're coming here, and the next step is now I need to secure all of these, right? So I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to pull out, let's say 6 or so inches of B-Lon. I'm going to use my scissors and I'm going to snip it. Now I'm still keeping pretty good tension here, and I'm going to wrap this around once, twice. Just once for good luck. You could do it one time, that's fine. I like to do it just one other time for good luck. So I'm saying warp thread, okay? W-A-R-P, correct. It is the warp thread. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to thread the B-Lon underneath all of the threads and then back through. Basically, I'm just tying a knot, right? Can I make it sound as complicated as possible? All you need to do is tie it in a knot once, and then I'm going to do that one more time. And make sure that you guys can see, that I can see, and then I can pull it through. Usually I do this when it's down on my workspace, so I have 2 hands to be able to tie that knot, but we can do it one-handed. We can do it one-handed. All right, so now I'm going to tie that knot one more time. And now that is nice and tight, and that is not going anywhere. Now, if by chance you had missed one of the your warp threads in the correct slots, you can usually zhuzh it one way or the other, the way that you want it to be. So I just checked here. This side looks great. Now I'm going to check my other side as well to make sure all of my threads are in the right place. And sometimes in the back they get a little wonky, but that looks pretty good. Okay. Now, the next step is a very important step. And sometimes when people are looming, they don't do this step. And I think it's a real disservice. What we want to do is now remove this rod. The whole point of the rod and the way that you warp the jewel loom is that by warping it with the rod in and then taking the rod out, it gives you really good tension on your warp threads. Now, I have pretty good tension on my warp threads because I've done this a couple times, but watch what happens. All right, let me see if I can do a really good demonstration of this. So you can kind of see how it's warping here. And now I'm going to remove this. Now, to remove this, again, putting it against your belly is a really good way to do it, but I'm going to do it against my workspace. I am going to hold the warp threads here with my finger and remove that rod. Okay, hopefully everybody saw that. I'll put it back. I'm gonna see if I can put it back in and then remove it again. So in, and then I'm bending it ever so slightly toward me. I'm bending the rod down ever so slightly and I'm pulling it out, okay? And now I really have a lot of tension there, okay? A lot more tension than before. Okay, whew. So pro tip, take a little piece of painter's tape or washi tape or any kind of tape, maybe even Scotch tape would work, and tape this to your jewel loom. Or on my workspace here, I have some magnets and I can put it against the magnets and it will stay. It should stay. If the other one stayed, yeah, it'll stay against the magnets, because this, like, trying to think of another similar part for a thing. Sometimes they like to walk away. So you want to make sure that you keep your rod for your jewel loom close at hand. Okay, so we're worked. We're good, right? So we have great tension. We have our jewel loom done, and we're ready to start looming. So the exciting part. And what we're going to do is we're going to use some WildFire, and I'm using black WildFire so that hopefully it will allow everybody to see really, really well. Now, a little tip for the WildFire is, I mentioned in the beginning, you want to use scissors that are really, really sharp. The other thing you want to do is use the sharpest part of your scissors, which is generally back here in the back jaw. And you want to you want to pull just slightly on that WildFire while you're cutting. Because this material is so strong and it has a coating on it, and underneath that coating, it's actually braided thread. It's a braided Spectra thread, which is a really, 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 really strong thread. Sometimes if you're just kind of trying to like snip at it with the tips of your scissors, it's not going to cut well. So you want to make sure that you're using sharp scissors, the back of your scissors, and kind of pulling it, just giving it a little bit of tension to make sure that it cuts really nicely. And you can see, right? You can see how nicely that cut. So you'll see I have my chain nose pliers in my hand. So this is the most important thing. I feel like if you learn nothing else from my class today, please learn this. When you are threading a needle with WildFire, what you want to do is take your chain nose or your flat nose pliers and squeeze them down so that it flattens the tip. So let me just show one more time how much it flattens. So here I'm cutting my WildFire. It is nice and, trying to get that back in focus, nice and flush there, but I'm going to come through and I'm going to smash it down so it's nice and flat. I'm just looking over to see what my dog is chewing on. It's definitely something that he should not be. And then I'm going to take my needle, and one of the things that I always say is you're not actually threading your needle, you are needling your thread. So we want to make sure that that thread, that WildFire, is only just barely sticking up from between my thumbnail and my index finger. And I'm going to come in with my jewel loom needle, and I'm just going to gently place that needle over the thread. So I looked that time to actually see what I'm going to do, doing it, and I think I came just a skosh out of frame. So let me do that one more time and see if I can see and you can see at the same time. It's not easy, friends. Not easy. There we go. Okay. Having both me and you see, but I think we got it, right? Yes. Thumbs up, everybody, hopefully. All right. And so now I'm just going to pull that through, and my needle is threaded. My thread is needled. So what I like to do, I always work on a bead board because, well, or not a bead board, a bead mat, for a zillion reasons, not the least of which is I can just park my needle right there, pointy side down, and not worry about it for a minute. Because now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come to the other end of the WildFire, and I am going to tie this end in an overhand knot on the left side of my jewel loom. Now I am right-handed. I haven't spoken with a lot of left-handed loomers to know if it is easier to do it the opposite way. That would be a very interesting question to have answered. So I'm just going to tie this in a knot. I tried to make this project as simple as possible because you can get super complicated with looming, but that's no fun to start out with, or even to learn how to use a new tool. So I'm leaving about, let me get my measuring device, about 3 inches from the top. And I am going to take my needle now underneath all of those threads. Okay, and I'm going to try to stop hitting my tripod. So that thread is now underneath all of these threads, and you're going to do that every time. It's a very repetitive, very meditative technique when you're looming. I like it because it can be freeform, but it's generally the same either pattern or motions every time. So one of the challenges of working with thread is, at least for me, is it seems to catch on everything as I'm working, and I have a lot of things right off of camera to be able to pull in if and when I need them. So I'm trying to make sure that my thread does not catch. So our next step is we are going to pick up in the instructions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm noticing that it does say 6 solid turquoise beads, but in fact, we are going to pick up 5 solid turquoise beads. And I apologize for that mistake. I'm looking both at the instructions here, and we'll get that fixed and resent out if we need to. I do apologize. It does say 6 solid turquoise beads, but what I'm going to do is 5 solid turquoise beads. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I did that very quickly. I want to show you how quickly it can be done, but I also want everyone to notice I am not picking up each bead and putting them on like this. You could, if that was your inclination. Very good question, Tina. I cut 5 feet, which is going to be plenty. Okay. When you, again, working on a bead mat, when you pick up your seed beads, whether they be size 6s like we're working today, or size 15s, which are super teeny, 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 tiny beads, or really any seed bead or small bead, when you pick it up on the mat, just piercing it right like that, it makes your life so much easier. Okay, so now I have my 5 beads on, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull those beads all the way down. Okay, now like with many seed bead patterns, the first couple stitches are always the most difficult. So if you can do the first couple rows, you are golden. So if you are struggling with this at all, then know that once you get your first couple rows, then everything is gravy after that. So these are my warp threads. And now we are going to add the beads, or the weft thread. So what I'm doing is I'm taking those 5 beads and I am pushing them with my index finger in between each of those 6 warp threads. Okay, so I'll pop them back out again. Each of those beads goes in between one of those threads. So what I'm doing is I'm creating a sandwich between the threads. So I have a thread coming on the bottom, and now I'm going to thread my thread back through. I'm not anything. I'm threading back through those beads to make a sandwich. So I was working from left to right. Now I'm working from right to left, and I'm going to sandwich those beads with my thread and pull tight. I don't want to pull super tight, but I'm pulling nice and tight. And they are lining up perfectly because I have my enough space in between here at the top. So if I had done these way wide, then it would be, you'd have to really cinch it in. But because we have skipped a space, that space comes down, and now we have our beads here. So the pattern that I did is super, super easy, super simple. It's just a little cross. or a little plus sign here in the middle. And using the different kinds of beads, it can be either a really subtle little plus sign or a more prominent plus sign. But the next step is to do 2 of our prominent color, then 1 of the accent color, and then 2 of the background color. And once again, just like I did before, I'm going to pull this down. The pattern is really referring to what I'm talking about in our lesson. I designed the instructions to really complement what I'm going over in the video, not to necessarily be standalone instructions. So they work in conjunction with what I'm doing on the video, rather than just being able to download them and go from there. So I'm actually going to be watching what I'm doing now, and I poked all of my beads through, and I'm coming back through on top. Now I'm going to do that a couple more times before we jump ahead, but I want to show everybody a couple of tips and tricks as we're doing this. Okay, so the next row in the pattern is going to be 1 background color, 3 accent colors, and 1 background color. Okay, and again, I am going to pull these down, use my index finger to poke them through each of those. I'm looking to the side because I know that Finn is eating something that he shouldn't, and then come back through on top. Now, these size 6 beads have very large holes, which makes them ideal for this technique. But if you have beads that have smaller holes, you might either not sandwich them all as you're going back through, or you could catch some of the thread. There are things that could happen. So what I always do is I make sure when I come back through here, I'm hitting the tops of each of the beads. So I'm not going kind of just straight through. I'm really making sure that I am grabbing the tops of each of the beads. And as you can see, the thread, especially when it's a little bit longer, does tend to get hooked on things, and just be aware of that. So the next row in my pattern actually duplicates the previous row. So like I said, super easy pattern. So now we have 2 background colors, 1 accent color, and 2 background colors. And oh, I see. Okay, so what? Trying to just figure it out what Finn has. So now again, and you can see it's the same step over and over again. And each time that I pull it through, I hope everybody's been noticing, I'm taking my needle and I'm pulling it back over to my right side. And I always keep my beads on my right side so that I'm not tempted to start over on the wrong side. You always want to start on the right side and work to the left side. So now I'm going to do the last row of my pattern, which is 5 of my background color. Okay, pull those down into place. Yes, Cindy, so naughty. Pop that up into place. And for people who don't see the comments, if you're watching them on the replay, Cindy was saying that she has her dog is she has her own delinquent dogs who are causing trouble on her end as well. And that's the pattern right there. So I'm gonna again come left to right underneath to get my needle reset for the next time. And we're gonna start that pattern again, so you can either do another row of all solid background colors, or I like to just keep on going. So now I'm going to do 2 background, 1 accent, 2 background. And then I am going to, this will be the last one that I do before we move on to finishing. 1, 2, 3, and then 1 and 2. So hold it in place and right up on the top against those beads. And this pattern, especially because it's not a very complicated pattern, because my beads are fairly big, and because I am doing it in a way that allows me to make a slide clasp here, it actually would probably take maybe about an hour and a half, start to finish, but not worry about, I don't know what I was going to say. What I wanted to mention was Caroline says, what happens if I cut the WildFire too short? Don't cut the WildFire too short. Beading threads and beading materials are not that expensive when you think about it. You always want to do more rather than less. It just makes your life easier. The only caveat to that is you don't want to do so much that you are going to that you're going to tangle everything, or you're going to do something that we call the beater's backstroke, where you're pulling back and pulling back so far. 5 feet is the perfect amount for this project. Okay, so now here is a design that I've done, and I've started from the, I've done the same design. I've used slightly different beads for it, so you can see the difference in the beads, but all of these beads have come from that mix of size 6 seed beads, which is super fun. And I can show you just one other variation too that I was working on. So, you know, 1 or 2 tubes of seed beads, and you have all of these different color variations that you can work with. So here we are at the end. Now, traditionally, in traditional bead weaving, what you would then need to do when you reach the end of your design is, and that's a very good question, Lily Darren. I'm going to touch on that in just 1 second, which is how long are we going to make it? So traditionally, when you are doing a loomed piece, you would need to weave these warp ends back in. And it is 1, time consuming, 2, not my favorite bead technique to do. It takes a while. And when you're using size 6 seed beads, the holes are so big that either you would have to weave so many times, or you would have to tie knots. In the classes that Danielle is teaching for John bead, she is using much smaller beads, and so she doesn't use knots. She weaves around and locks the thread in place. That technique, unfortunately, won't work in this case. But we don't even have to worry about weaving our warp threads in, because we're actually going to use those warp threads to make our ending. So we're not worrying about a clasp. We're not worrying about weaving anything back in. We're not worrying about attaching anything. We are using those warp threads to make an adjustable clasp. Now, the perfect question was just asked, which is, how long do we need to make this? So what you want to do is you want to measure the widest part of your wrist, because that is how long, or how wide and how long you need to make your bracelet. So with a tape measure, which I always have at the ready, but somehow seem to have put away, you can take a tape measure and measure that part of your wrist, so you'll know how long it needs to be. Then you want to think about your pattern, right? It's going to be easier to see on this one. each of these is, each of this pattern takes up a certain amount of time or a certain amount of space. So if I wanted to have it a whole nother amount of room, it's going to be that much more space. So for my bracelet, it doesn't necessarily have the beads all the way around. There's actually a lot of the cording that is available, right? So you can kind of fudge around a little bit with the amount of space and the amount of repetitions of the pattern. So you can do it really however you like it. You could do more, you could do less. I like having the ability to have a little bit of my thread showing. Okay, so here we are at the end. I've come to the end, I've done my last row. And if I were doing more, of course, I would put my needle underneath and get ready to go again, but I'm not doing more. So what I'm going to do is I am going to weave this thread in a couple of rows, and then I'm just going to tie a knot. So I'll show you how I do that. So one of the great things about the jewel loom is that it's portable, but you can also pick it up. Some jewel looms, or I'm sorry, some beading looms either need to stay on your workspace or just are kind of uncomfortable to hold. When I'm trying to show things for people though, I do like putting it down. But I do know that there are a lot of people who like to hold their loom like this or like this as they're doing their looming. So just something to think about. All right, so I came out here, I wove just in a zigzag, and now I'm going to come back down through the second to last row. And I'm going to take my needle and I'm going to tie a knot right along the side. I could tie a knot in the middle. This is not fancy jewelry. This is not, you know, this is kind of a fun summer project. So I'm just going to tie my knot in the middle. And the first thing I like to do is trim that off. And you can see I have all of this thread left here. So 5 feet is a good amount to work with. Okay, so now when I mentioned the materials in the beginning of the class, I did talk about a thread burner. Let me see if I can do this so that you can see, so that I can see, and so that I don't burn myself. You can also do this with a lighter, but it is a lot easier, a lot more precise to just do it with a little thread burner and then just singe and seal that end right there, just like that. And just make sure that you don't heat it up so much that that you burn through any of the thread. So now I'm ready to start my adjustable clasp portion of the bracelet. And now okay, so now I'm ready to start the adjustable clasp portion of the bracelet. So what do we do now? How do we get this off, right? Always a big question. Very, very easy. So I'm going to turn it over, and I want as much thread to work with as possible. So see how I started about 3 inches down, and I have probably about 4 inches here. But if I had a larger wrist and I measured right around the largest part of my wrist, right? So this is the largest part around your wrist. That's where you want to measure to get your measurement for being able to slide it over. The more you have to work with here, the better. So I like to turn it over, and using my scissors, I'm going to very gently cut these threads off as close to the button as I can. Now, this is under tension, right? Because we put the tension on here with that bar in the very beginning. So I just want to be cognizant that there's going to be a little spring on this, okay? It's kind of a gotcha the first time if you don't realize that it's going to happen. It's it's a gotcha. All right, so I'm gonna come here and I'm just going to snip those off. And as they come off, did you see how it did that? It kind of snapped back. And so now I can come and cut from the other end as well. Okay, so I love how like it's not going to fall apart. I don't really have to worry about anything with this except for finishing it off. And I have that little piece here on the beginning too that I'm noting, and I can just come in. I could have done this on the loom also, but I want to just singe that and seal it with the thread burner. Okay, so now for the finishing. So like I was mentioning, in the olden days, or if you're doing a different technique, each of these work threads you'd have to put on a needle and thread all the way back through and secure and zigzag around and make sure that they didn't come out or you know, fall out. And then you would do a whole bunch of different techniques to be able to get your clasp on. But we're going to do it a little differently today, and a little simpler. Every time I move, I hit this. I'm so sorry. There we go. So all we're going to do for this finishing technique is we are going to take one bead over each pair of threads here. So we have 6 threads on the end. We're going to put one bead over 2, one bead over 2, and one bead over 2, and then we're going to tie a knot, right? Easy peasy. So I'm going to think, what color do I want to use? I think I'm going to use my accent color. You can use the background color if you'd like, totally fine. So because the B-Lon is what it is, you don't need a needle with it, even or especially to come through these size 8 seed beads. You just have to take a little bit of time and a little bit of care, but it should thread through really easily. If it doesn't, you can do a couple of different things. You can use a big eye needle. You can use a collapsible eye needle. You can actually singe the end of the B-Lon to make it a little bit harder. It's not the easiest of all the possible techniques, but that works too. But a collapsible eye needle is kind of my go-to plan B for if I need to get B-Lon through beads. But you can see I just double stranded right through that bead. So it should not, with a good pair of glasses, some good lighting, and a little bit of luck, it should not be a problem at all. Okay, so now I have each of my pairs of seed beads. I have again, just one of those size 6 seed beads on each pair, okay? And I'm going to tie an overhand knot, right? Not hard, not anything fancy or complicated. I'm going to kind of bundle these all together, and I'm going to pull them around. And if I can get them all through on one pass, great. And if not, I can kind of go back and get any stragglers that I need to get, but it should go through without too much of a problem, right? And a good tip to getting this knot nice and tight, and I did not include this tool in the materials, but it's a good just kind of tip to know, is if you use a beading awl, or you could use the tip of your scissors or a pen, or I'm trying to think of other things. I'm just looking around my studio to see other things, but it really helps get that knot nice and tight. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of pull. I'm holding the knot between my thumb and my forefinger, just kind of pulling. And if there's a little wiggle room in here, that's actually a good thing. I always put a lot of tension on my a lot of wiggle room. I don't want this to be really, really tight. I always put in a lot of wiggle room in my designs. All right, so we did that on one side, and I'm going to go do it on the other side as well. And these are much longer. And if I don't like that bend, if that's kind of getting in my way, or if it's making me unhappy for any reason, I can just cut those off. I think I'm just going to give these guys a little haircut right now, just to get those flyaway ends a little more under control. Okay, so now once again, same thing we're going to do on this side that we did on the other side. I'm going to put these into pairs. I'm going to take the two on the end, and I'm going to use my accent color to thread through each of the beads. Okay, so that's one. And now here is two. And one more makes three. And then I'm going to do that same thing. I'm going to tie everything into a knot. And I use B-Lon for so many different things. And the one thing I think I forgot to mention also is if you're having trouble pulling it through, if it gets a little bit frayed, just cut it again, and a nice clean end on the B-Lon will make it again easier to thread through those size 6 seed beads. You can't do it really with 11s so much, but we're using big beads for this project for many reasons, but not the least of which is so that I can get the B-Lon through them. So now again, overhand knot, and sometimes I get all of the threads through perfectly. Sometimes I don't, but that time it worked as well. And I'm going to show you just without kind of using my tooltip. It's really no big thing getting the that knot nice and tight, especially if you do it nice and slow and pull on all of these ends. So now we have a knot on one side and a knot on the other side, and our pretty bracelet in the middle. So last step, we're coming down the home stretch, friends. 2 last steps. The first step is we need to put in these little twists. Okay, so here I have 6 frayed, fun, silly, going all over the place ends, and we need to get them nice and twisted together. And this is one of my favorite techniques, because it's just one of those things that you're like, how does that work? But it totally works. I'm sure that there's some sort of explanation and people are going to be like, well, duh, Meredith. I get a huge kick out of this. Okay, so I now have them broken into 2 groups of 3. So before I had 3 groups of 2, now I have 2 groups of 3. So I'm going to take one group, doesn't matter which one you start with, and I'm going to twist it in between my thumb and my index finger. And I'm twisting it, I guess this is clockwise, okay? So twisting it clockwise. Now, I always say when I teach my classes, there's always one step that's like the tricky step. And this is the tricky step, and it's really not that tricky, but this is the step that I think is the trickiest, because you have to hold this in a twist and also twist this side. So the way that I do this is I hold it, I kind of pinch it down here in between my thumb and I guess this is my ring finger, and I come over and I twist the other side the same way. So don't twist it the opposite way, twist it the same way, okay? So I'm just kind of holding this. It's not the most comfortable thing I've ever done, but it should, you know, figure out what works best for you to hold it, and then just bring them together and they will naturally twist together. You might have to kind of zhuzh it a little bit to get it to come together nicely, or if you over twisted it or under twisted it, but just like that, it just kind of comes together. And so all of these little frayed ways over here have now nicely come together. And again, simple overhand knot, right? We're not making super complicated jewelry today. We're making something fun and easy and summery and great. And I got one of my little threads wanted to escape, but I got him back. Okay. And this twist could be as tight or as loose as you want. And if you hate the twist, you know what? Go ahead and do like a fishtail braid, or I think a fishtail braid would probably be the easiest one, or just do a braid, right? Because you have 6 strands, so just braid it up. I just think it's really fun to do this little twist, and everybody knows how to do a braid, so I wanted to show something a little bit different. So once again, in case you missed it on the first side, we're going to come in here, and with these ends, I'm going to twist them clockwise, right? Clockwise? Like, yeah, clockwise. And just kind of hold them. Maybe I'll try to do this one with my left hand, and I'm going to hold this out with my right hand. But what I find is it's better to use the same hand, because then you know, I mean, you'll know because they're not going to twist together, but you'll know that you're twisting them the same way. So yes, Evelyn, you can definitely use this to create a wraparound bracelet. You would just have to adjust the technique a little bit to make for a longer part. There's actually another tool that I would recommend to use to make a wraparound bracelet if you wanted to use this technique. But so make sure that you keep referring back to the Beadalon or to the Michaels classroom, because that class will be coming up in August. All right, so again, just a quick down and dirty overhand knot for the other side. And now we are ready for our last step. And this is one of my favorite closures for a bracelet. So again, you can do this with a twist, but you could also get, you could do a braid, you can do a fishtail. I just like the little twist. And now all we're gonna do is a really quick macrame clasp. And I'm gonna use white B-Lon. It comes in a 3-pack with black, gray, and white. I use the gray for, no, I'm sorry. I use the gray for the warp thread. And just so that everybody can really see what I'm doing, I'm going to use some white for this macrame knot. And I'm going to pull out about 12 inches. And with this, I do not need 12 inches. It's just one of those things that it is easier to have a little bit more than to have a little bit less. And I've done this with a little bit less, and it's no fun. So I have my bracelet in a bracelet shape, and one of my threads is going one way and one is going the other. So not like this. Well, I guess you could do it like that, but we're not doing like that today. So opposite ways, and we're going to tie a macrame knot. So I'm taking my B-Lon, and you could, there's no reason why you couldn't use a contrasting color, but I like, again, when I demonstrate things, I want people to really be able to see, especially when there's this much room between the camera and what I'm doing, because this really does need to be, I need 2 hands to be able to do this. So square knot, right over left, pull it tight. And the tension here is not so tight that you can't slide it, but not so loose that it's going to slip out. So that is kind of a feel thing, but you'll know if it's too tight, and you'll know if it's not tight enough, and you'll be able to account for that next time. So I have my knot here, and now I'm going to just start doing some macrame knots. So I'm making a triangle, or how I learned it, a 4 over on this side. I'm going to take, and I'll pull this up so people can see a little bit better in just a second, but I'm going to come here with the opposite end, come under all of the threads. I don't know why that's not going the way I want it to, and through that loop. I always feel like when you're teaching macrame knots, like when you break it down, it looks so much more complicated than it actually is. So now I just did this side, and I'm going to do this side. So I'm going to pull it up now that I can do it with 2 hands. So I'm going to pull, I have a loop here on this side. Then I'm going to take this side underneath everything and through that loop, and I'm going to pull it tight. Okay, let's do that a couple more times. And this, I usually do it, oh, I don't know, maybe 4 full knots. And that's Finn. For anybody who is curious about what a silly, crazy, hungry for dinner golden retriever sounds like, that is what he sounds like. He loves a Zoom call. He definitely, I don't think that there is a Zoom call that I have been on at home that Finn has not made an appearance. Usually he stays underneath my desk and keeps my feet warm. But he is overdue for dinner and he knows it. All right, so let's see. Maybe I'll do one more. And because this is white on black, you can see the black through. So you can kind of see the amount of tension that I have on this. Oh, thank you, Jeanette. I really appreciate that. Oh, everybody's being so kind. Okay, focus, Meredith, focus. I do very much appreciate all of your kind words. So let's see, this is 1, 2, 3, 4 knots, and that looks nice. If I want it to be more, I can do more, but I think that this is good for now. And this is where that cord cutter / lighter comes in very handy, because what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the cord cutter to cut and seal the ends. So you can see it smoking there. That's because there was a little bit of residual or residue on it from another cut. But I'm just going to come in here and I'm very, very gentle. I'm almost like I'm drawing with the cord cutter. You heat it up by pressing the button, but then you want to back it off. You don't want to singe or melt or otherwise hurt yourself with it. And then always, always, always put the cap back on, because this is very, very hot. And then you have the adjustability in the bracelet. And hopefully, if you've done everything right, it is a good size. It will hold, but still slide. I'm sorry. Yeah, it will hold, but still slide. And look really, really pretty. So great gift. And the way that you do this, I take it for granted that people know how to do these. I just hold it kind of with my pinky and then pull on the other side. Sometimes you can kind of put the knot in between your teeth if you need to. But yeah, so that is our class for today. If someone can grab the front camera for me, I can say thank you to everybody and how much I appreciate you sticking with me for the whole class. This was great. Hopefully it inspired you to pick up a jewel loom, some B-Lon, some WildFire, and some size 6 seed beads. Looming can be a little bit intimidating, but hopefully this project made it accessible so that anyone who has a jewel loom and hasn't used it yet takes it out and tries the product. And if you don't have one, I hope that you're inspired to go out and grab one and make the project. That is it for me. We've done the project. We have done start to finish, and the instructions are included and were emailed to everyone. So that's it for me. I'll sign off and say happy beading to everybody, and thank you so, so very much for joining me today.
Thank you, Meredith. Hope everybody had fun and learned something new. Enjoy your weekend.